So I think Sappers overall are just terribly designed and are both incredibly boring for the spy to use and for the engineer to fight against. They have no cooldown, so they can be spammed indefinitely. They only counter one thing that one class has access to and are completely useless in every other situation. And just overall, they feel like a lazily put together, half-assed solution to the problem that is the Sentry gun. However, in my time playing TF2, I have come to learn that Sappers are a necessary evil, and if we were to remove them from the game, things would go pretty pear-shaped pretty fast for more than just a few classes. So let me explain why. Before we get to things truly swinging though, allow me to elaborate on the main point of this video. Sappers are boring. You know, I brought this up to a friend once who told me that they weren't really that bad in reality, so I legitimately killed him. Anyway, like I was saying, Sappers are incredibly boring. They are unfun for the spy to use, and they are unfun for the engineer to fight against. In a video game setting where fun is the #1 priority, if something is unfun, that is a legitimate criticism, and I'm tired of people pretending that it isn't. As I mentioned, the Sappers' overall poor design of both stunning the Sentry and dealing damage to it, and being incredibly spammable, makes for a generally one-sided fight when it comes to Sappers versus Sentries. In a solo setting, all the spy has to do is walk up to the building, place the Sapper on it, and then it will go down within a matter of seconds. But in a more combat-oriented setting, being the engineer on the receiving end of having one of your buildings sapped can set off every neurological signal your brain has designed to set off when you are legitimately dying. The Sapper technique, as it is dubbed, is entirely workaroundable if you are a good spy. A good spy will know when the engineer has struck the Sapper once and is attempting to shoo them away so that he can finish the Sapper off. It is at this point as a spy where you use your movement to dodge the engineer's shot to get closer to the Sentry again to be able to reapply Sapper if he removes it. I understand that the video demonstration you just saw probably wasn't as good as it could have been, but my point still stands firm. The Sapper technique is not a one and done golden rule for all engineers to learn that instantly makes dealing with Sappers completely fine. It is still a fantastic thing for the engineer to understand, but it is not a one and done counter, and every time I have brought up my issues with Sappers to people, this has always been reciprocated to me, and we normally have this very lengthy conversation. So, Sappers aren't fun to use, they're not fun to deal with, boo-hoo. Why don't we just remove them from the game entirely? Removing Sappers would cause its own problems, and would genuinely throw the balance of the game into question. First off, removing Sappers from the game would just be a great punch in the teeth for Spy. Now, I've gone on record before to say that I do not believe Spy is weak. I believe people generally use that as an excuse when they are failing at the game. Spy might be the weakest of the classes, sure, but he is definitely not weak. Those are two different things, and people seem to use them interchangeably. Spy simply has some very specific jobs to perform on a team, and taking out sentries is one of the main things he does. If we were to just take that ability away from Spy, not only would that not be very fair to him, but also sentries would become even more of a problem than they currently are as well. Now, I guess one thing I should have clarified a bit ago, because someone somewhere out there is probably pissing themselves in the comments over what a young British man on the internet had to say, is that the general discussion of Sappers is largely based in a casual setting. 1, because competitive is not fun and you know it, and 2, because both sentries and spies aren't very common in competitive settings. Casual players are not necessarily worse than competitive players. That has never played a contributing factor into any of my balanced discussion videos. However, it is 100% true that certain things fly in casual settings that would utterly not fly in a competitive setting whatsoever. Which I think neatly brings me along to my second point. If you just outright remove the Sapper, then buildings would become incredibly difficult to deal with. Now, incredibly is a bit of an overstatement because there are still many ways, for every class in fact, to deal with buildings. But if you outright remove the Sapper, you also remove a huge opportunity for teams to work together to take down a sentry nest. I am of course referring to the coordinated push. You see, taking out a sentry nest isn't the hard part. It's actually getting yourself into the opportunity where you are able to take out the sentry nest that is the difficult thing. And of course, like with most things, the best way to fix a problem like this is with teamwork. Coordinating with your team and timing everything right in order to take out a building nest can be quite tricky. First of all, once again, we are largely talking about pubs. Coordination in pubs is very thin, but some of the best ways to initiate pushes on building nests are via the use of Ubercharge or, you guessed it, Sappers. It's not that the Sappers themselves really take out the buildings, it's that they disabled the buildings long enough for your team to take out the buildings. Removing Sappers would remove that opportunity for teamwork. And all of this is only talking about nest pushes. You don't need an Ubercharge to take out a teleporter, and if nobody takes out that teleporter to begin with, that can become a very big threat. Spy's ability to get behind the enemy backlines with ease means that taking out teleporters can be a breeze for him, and if he is no longer able to do that, teleporters could become even better than they already are. So, if any of that made sense to you, the basic underline is that if you remove Sappers and add no other compensation in any field, then buildings could potentially become very, very strong. But what if you did want to add some compensation elsewhere? What if we just globally buffed everyone's abilities to deal with sentries normally? This would be a terrible idea. I cannot think of a single thing that could be done to buff everyone else's abilities to deal with sentries and remove Sappers at the same time that also keeps Spy in a balanced state, that also keeps Spy in a useful state, and that also doesn't just break everyone else entirely and make Engineer incredibly unfun to play. You can't nerf Spy's ability to deal with buildings or just outright take it away and buff everyone else's ability to deal with them, or just remove the Sapper and buff Spy's abilities to deal with buildings the other way. It's just pointless. If you want to implement changes like this, you run the risk of basically reworking the Engineer entirely without even knowing it. His buildings would go from permanent staples to more of a disposable thing, whilst still having the full cost of permanent buildings. There is nothing that can be done in this situation. Sappers need to remain on Spy because otherwise he'd become even worse than he currently is. If they were removed altogether and no other compensation was made, buildings could become very, very strong, and if Sappers were still removed altogether and everyone else, including Spy maybe, got some other compensation, then Engineer would become a laughingstock. And this, maybe half-heartedly anyway, brings me along to the main point of the video. This is why Sappers are a necessary evil. There is no alternative. Yes, I think Sappers are incredibly boring, I think they are incredibly poorly designed, and I just don't think they're very fun to use or to fight against. But I can't think of a single alternative that could replace the function of the Sapper and still keep the balance of the game in check. Sappers need to exist. That doesn't make me happy. And it's not just a skill issue, I have a feeling some people have probably already commented that already. But what does make me happy is that the alternatives don't exist, so maybe I should find some sanctity in that. Thank you for watching, everyone. This video took a while to make, and you might have noticed that from the editing, but if you didn't, oh well. Sorry, it's been a very long time since I've made a proper Lon'qudor style TF2 video, and that's because burnout is quite a difficult thing, but I'm slowly forcing myself back into it. Now, I just want to give some thank yous before we end things off. The first thank you goes to DudeTheNinja for allowing me to use his render of Supremacy. You can find his channel linked down in the description below. And the second thank yous go to the people who have been creating fan art of my logo or my character loadouts in my Discord server. I don't think this is even half of it, but thank you very, very much to everyone who has been doing so, and if you'd like to create some and have it featured on the channel, you may join my Discord server, linked down in the description below, and we have a chat called Museum where you can post your stuff like this. In the near future as well, we're going to start having custom roles for those who got their fan art featured on the channel, so that's cool. But apart from that, thank you very, very much everyone for watching, and I will see you later down the sunny road.